morning, and thank you for tuning in to WMEB 91.9 FM Orono, Maine. And welcome to Layers of Expression. I'm your host, Sam Grimwood, and this is a space to talk about all things art. Layers of Expression brings to you thought-provoking conversation about artistic research, process, and one's journey in the arts. Today, my guest is Elle, Azul, a fellow IMFA graduate student. Hi, Elle. How are you?
Hi. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. I'm so excited. You and I have a lot of just like conversations that I think would be beneficial for others to hear, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
so I thought, why not?
Yeah.
But we talk about things that I think have substance too. We have like our regular chit chat, but we always talk about things that are so relevant to what we're experiencing in the world, which I think is really nice to hear and also perfect for this type of a space.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about who you are, like maybe like your education and maybe some of your artistic practice.
Yeah, my education is all over the place. I moved all over the place as a kid, so I have just a kind of cultural education that's pretty diverse. I went to Grinnell College, which is like a small liberal arts college in the Midwest, majored in gender, women's sexuality studies, and studio art, and then I actually started grad school in Estonia at Estonian Academy of Arts, and then COVID kind of happened, the Ukraine war started, and it was just getting kind of dicey out there, so I came back, and then I meant to only come back for a little bit, and then I got a job teaching high school art here, and then just was like, I need to finish my degree. I really want to finish my degree, and here we are at the intermedia program at UMaine.
I love that. Can you tell me a little bit more about your experience in Estonia? I visited once when I was younger, and I would die to go back and visit it as like an adult who can appreciate the culture and like environment that I was in.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it's a newly like independent country. The architecture is very like you can really see the history when you walk around it. But I think that there's a super thriving artistic scene in every single like in art, in music, in philosophy, and like there's support for it, and there's people who are fulfilling those roles, so it's like a really, really lively scene, and gosh, the way they support their artists, it's like
top tier.
Yeah, it is top tier. They pay them to go to school. They pay them to get PhDs.
Could you imagine?
Oh my gosh, they pay They have art spaces open for them. They have like just residencies. I mean, it's a different story, and that's something that we should think about. Is going over to Europe a bit because they support their artists. Yeah, I mean it was awesome. I was a bit depressed when I was there, so it was like, trying to walk around in Eastern Europe when you're depressed is not exactly the best antidote.
No, it's got this just like shadow of like sadness over what could be such a bright and wonderful experience. Yeah. So I'm really curious about your creative process. Can you describe like a typical day or session when you're working on a piece? Maybe if you have like a piece that you're currently working on right now or that you have like the start of?
I'm like very all over the place. I make music, I sculpt, I do animation, I draw. Right now I'm working on creating this kind of like fully articulated like animation puppet.
I would love to touch on the fact that you take such intricate and like attention to detail when you do sculpt. Like making the knuckles is such a like, it's a small detail, but I think it's such a crucial detail, and like how complete I think you make your sculptures, and I genuinely love looking at that type of like detail that you do in your work, honestly. I love that you've like evolved though with this theme of like using like mythology as like a core element to the shapes and sculptures that you make, because I'm a big fan of fantasy. For people who are listening, like that's something Elle and I bonded on in our first class, was just like that innate desire to like explore themes in fantasy and like what that looks like in our own styles or like formats or mediums, and that's always been something I appreciate about our relationship and dynamic.
I just feel like we are the fantasy makers. We make our own reality, and we can make our own dreams, and our imagination is really our best resource, and we can't lose that.
Exactly. To never stop creating and embrace the fact that is just like, I think something innate in humans is the desire to create whatever form that may take. It's just wanting to do that and practice it. Something for me too is I was always discouraged by never being like a mastery of something or having a mastery of skills in like the traditional forms of like painting and sculpting. And you'll hear me talk about that a lot because that was my conventional understanding to what art was. But this program specifically, like I'll always talk about intermedia, this program, because it's what opened my eyes to what that actually means. And so like being able to explore different mediums has been greatly beneficial, and also being exposed to different things because of the people in our program like you.
That's the great thing about intermediate is there's just such diversity within the like cohort. People from all sorts of backgrounds. I mean, I think there's only a couple of us that actually have an art undergrad degree. Yeah. So that's cool. That's really cool.
Because we talked about how like fantasy and some of those other thematic things are things that have like pushed your desire to experiment. I'm curious, like, what is your experience with like inspiration? Like, do you pull from, I know you pull from mythology and maybe some of the stories you've heard from that, but maybe like, I don't know, things you've read or like things you've experienced?
Yeah, I mean, of course it comes from all over, but I am a reader. I love reading. I read a lot of Carl Jung and his disciples, like people who kind of analyze mythology. I read a lot of kind of mystic theologists like Richard Rohr and people like, I don't know, who kind of contextualize spirituality in the modern moment and what it means and kind of the rootlessness of particularly Americans and also trying to reconcile the East with the West, which is even what we're like exploring one of our classes right now. So but that's a huge interest for me. And I gain a lot of inspiration from that and from those ideas. I read a lot of philosophy, Western and Eastern. But then I just gain inspiration from my immediate environment too.
I totally relate to that. Like, it's so random when that like sense of inspiration hits, because it's like some people would assume that you have to like almost have like a directional process to have inspiration, but no, for me it's at the most random, honestly inconvenient times too. Like
driving,
literally you're like, wait, now I have to stop and pull over or write this down because now I'm gonna lose it out of my head or something, or like
sleeping
literally
actually, and being like a high school educator too. I see there's a lot of like, you're an art teacher, like right,
there's a weird stigma behind it that's so unwarranted when it's like, do you understand how the skills developed through art classes in high school and middle school are crucial, I think, to like design elements and even more than that.
Just seeing the world. It's really like a philosophical education.
To like basically eradicate the shame behind that want to create or that creative inspiration or desire is so important when it comes to like development into adulthood. It really is.
Yeah, and I think when you're young, you think that the world's very simple, or at least I did. And and I thought it would be a lot easier to be happy. I thought it would be a lot easier to find purpose, because you think those purpose and happiness are achieved through these like simple things that you're taught. And then you get older and you realize it's a lot more complex than that. And I think having the understanding that you can engage with life in a much more nuanced way and not what mainstream values would tell you is the way to engage with it.
I agree.
That's really valuable.
No, I'd love if you could talk to me a little bit about, like, I know you've experimented with a lot, but like your preferred materials.
I do tend to like materials that I can control more, because then the idea in my head, I can actually achieve it, right? My preferred materials are, epoxy clay, love it. It is incredible. You can sculpt anything out of it, hard as a rock. And I work a lot in silver when I'm doing my metal work. It's pretty easy to solder. It's easy to cut and form, and I like silver a lot, and it's just like cool working in silver.
No, it is.
It feels fun.
Honestly, I love it, especially because of the pieces I've seen you do. When I see like anything that kind of aligns with silver, like on social media, immediately I'm associated to you because of the presence it's created in my mind.
Awesome.
It's just really nice to see just like someone I love and support, but also respect as another creator, to like just have set such a presence in my mind based on the material.
That's so
like,
cool.
Yeah. Always love to to tell you that.
Yes.
You've been a practicing artist for most of your life. Can you tell me a little bit about, like, I know you talked about your education and some of the experiences you've had, but maybe more so like your journey, like, through
Sure.
life, so, like...
Yeah. I mean, my journey was definitely affected a lot by the fact that my parents were very adventurous and nomadic, and they kind of just, like, figured it out, you know, they'd find somewhere, like they, you know, they bought a piece of land in Costa Rica with all their money for like $5,000, and then they built a little hut on it, and we lived there for a long time, and then they were able to sell that, and then we moved to Hawaii. I grew up in Hawaii for most of my early childhood, and we kind of we'd fix up places, live there for a while, and then sell it, and then buy a new place. So we just, like, moved a lot, but there was a lot of love put into every single place that we moved. I feel like that affected me a lot. Like, there was a lot of hard work and a lot of attention and a lot of respect given to the physical spaces that we were in and the cultures that we were in. But then there wasn't, like, too much of a holding on kind of. It was like, okay, this was beautiful, let's see, you know, seek our fortune elsewhere and just see what else happens. So I think that affected me a lot. My parents even lived on a boat for like 10 years, a sailboat.
What?
In the lower Caribbean, yeah, and that's where my sister lives now. So we're all scattered.
How freaking cool is that, though? I think diving into that a little deeper will have a lot of substance, like, because like, the way you talked about not having, like, a sense of obligation to a location, I think bodes for how you practice as an artist. You're not obligated to a material. You're not obligated to, like, a specific theme. Like, and I think that, I just love that, because...
Yeah, it's a cool way of putting it, yeah.
It really is, because you don't ever feel like you can appreciate what you're experiencing, like living in Costa Rica or living in Hawaii or working with silver or working with epoxy clay, but you're not limited to it. Like, understanding and appreciating the environment that you're in is a very wonderful and beautiful skill to have, but not feeling tied down by it.
Yeah, and not feeling like it's the entirety of my identity.
Well, and also being able to work with a thing rather than appropriate the thing is also super important, because like something for me that I've experienced recently was like working with chainmail for the first time is a very difficult material.
I don't know how you
Honestly, insane, but it created such a sense of like discipline for myself, because like something about photography, which is my preferred format, is it's almost like immediate, almost like in how you can have the object already, you can add stuff later to it, but with chainmail you just got a bunch of silver rings that you got to bend and manipulate and work with.
I love playing with space, and I think it's really, really powerful, especially when it comes and I'm playing with characters, so why wouldn't I play with space? So that's definitely something I want to do more of.
I think that also poses a really interesting question for like maybe like virtual worlds. If we talked a little bit about what you thought about maybe like incorporating virtual space into some of your work, because I know you've worked in the digital sphere, you animate. So
I do. I animate, and that's such an interesting topic, because it's something I wrestle with, but I do find it endlessly fascinating that you know, me and many others like me like making characters and dolls and other worlds and world building. Like, what is that impulse? Is this like some weird kind of Western monotheistic kind of originating, you know, like I just want to be the originator and create my, you know, this kind of alternate reality. And where does that come from? And that also involves video games, virtual reality, you know, things like that. So I do have that really strong impulse, and I think that's honestly where I want to explore that a lot. Like, what is that impulse? Is that, I don't want to say good or bad, but like, what does it mean? I feel like I'm just trying to figure myself out as a human, and that's part of, like, you know, that impulse.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that is really important and prevalent in most, at least what I'm interacting with, in terms of like artistic practices nowadays, is like socially engaged art, which is a major topic of like our program currently. Susan Smith, our program director, is a huge advocate for socially engaged art. So I'm kind of curious, you know, like, how do you situate yourself in that?
Oh my gosh, I might be the wrong person to ask. I mean, my undergrad was in gender women's studies. You know, I have an interest in these things, but I don't know, my particular way of making doesn't really lend itself towards that. There are impulses, I guess, in that direction. Like I have like a huge gong, and I love playing it for people. And I'm like, I feel like this is gonna help people.
Yeah.
There are those impulses to kind of have interactions. But
Yeah.
no, I'm pretty, and I do teach, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do. Obviously, that's very that's socially engaged, I guess. But no, I'm very much so like an introvert.
In terms of collaboration, like I know we're in a class right now that bodes for an interesting type of
Oh
collaboration.
yes, we're about to hash it out.
Curious about like other forms of collaboration you do. Like I know we've done photos together.
Yeah,
where
we do. Yeah,
we literally are like, this is a cool idea. You look like Arwen from Lord of the Rings.
Let's make it happen. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about your thoughts on that.
Sure. Yeah, I love collaborating with you. It's amazing. I do collaborate with music sometimes. That process, actually one of my favorite things to do just throughout my whole life when I get together with a friend or, I see someone is just like make a song.
Cool.
And then like make a music video or something like that.
Cool.
Or like, so, and in a night we'll just, I produce, and we can sing, write lyrics, whatever. So I have a lot of like cool songs made in a night.
Dude, what? Let's make a music video.
Let's do it. I would love to do it with you. Sometimes we make a ridiculous song about like Goat Simulator. You know that? Yes. So my friend and I made a song about Goat Simulator, and it's incredible.
I love that.
It's on my SoundCloud.
It's so nice to also not take yourself too freaking seriously, because when you do that, I think it automatically like filters the like colorful rainbow your brain can have towards certain things. So like making a song about Goat Simulator is also a fun way of making art.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you give yourself this permission to just be free and fail and like play. And that's so important. I think that's something even like I recognized from when I was in my grad school program in Estonia. I definitely wasn't giving myself enough room to play, and now I'm just like, oh, I want to make like a weird puppet.
Yeah, make the weird puppet.
Let me do it. Yeah,
Yes.
So yeah,
I love that. Something that every artist, and I want to generalize because I think this is absolutely valid to anybody who practices art in any shape, way, or form, or craft or anything, is failure and success.
Yes.
Like, have there been moments in your like experience in artistic research and practice and journey where you have felt a work has failed, and then how do you approach the idea of failure in your practice?
I mean, obviously failure is super necessary to figure out where you are and what you're doing and how what you're doing is being read. I think my biggest struggle is always like, I have all of these ideas and these very intricate kind of things and bits of research that I'm bringing into my work, and so bridging that gap is sometimes where I fail. Yes,
I think that's something that all artists can have difficulty with, because no one's in our brain, and it is our job to be able to communicate that. And it's like you said, it's okay if they don't get it. Honestly, sometimes that's even better, because guess what, that prompts conversations and questions, which like as I'm doing this online radio show on WMEB, I'm also posting these on my YouTube channel and like Spotify and Apple Podcasts to make it accessible, simply because conversations are the substance to which I think like progress in any shape, way, or form. Exactly. Something Susan Smith talks about a lot, and I always name drop her because I think she is such an incredible resource. Never stop playing. Never stop creating. Just try new things. Experiment. Experimentation in that form is research, and that's why our program is one of the only in the country that is art based on research. So remember, to anybody who's listening, never stop creating, and tune in next week, Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 11, again for Layers of Expression. Thank you again, Elle, so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Have a good day, guys. It was so good.
Oh, I love talking.